Oh, you got everything she had. All right, let's go ahead and get started if we can. Or not. Yeah, either one. It's kind of like people in the morning. They don't say. Let's go ahead and get started if we can, folks. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's 5 o'clock, Tuesday, November 1st, public hearing. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified of the public hearing in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Nicole, let's do a roll call just to verify quorum, please.
Here. Councilmember Myers.
Here.
Councilmember Popson.
Here.
Councilmember Streetman.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson. Councilmember Pierce. Councilmember Bogosian.
Here.
Mayor Pounds.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. So tonight we've got 5 ordinances. Douglas, I'll let you have the floor and kind of kick us off if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor. There are 5 ordinances here up for public hearing tonight. Even though there are 5, there's really one concept that all 5 are working to achieve, and that is to reduce the allowable number of dwelling units and in units that are allowed to be developed within the Wild Dunes PRD to their current numbers today. The 3 first ordinances are really kind of technical in nature, and they are changing the existing conservation overlay district to become the conservation recreation district. It's also expanding that district to include the 2 golf courses, both portions inside Wild Dunes and the portions that are outside Wild Dunes, and also to cover the tennis facilities. So that new district would now encompass those 12 properties and rezone those properties to become part of the new CR district. There's also some cleanup text that's happening in our zoning code. And then I guess, like I said in the beginning, the primary thing that's happening is the number of entitlements in both in units and dwelling units would be lowered down to their current number as they sit today. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. So we've had about 16 folks sign up tonight. So what we'll do, kind of like last time, 3-minute limit. We'll go through those 16, and then a couple of folks have said they didn't have the opportunity to sign up. So we'll let you take the mic when we finish with the folks that have signed up. So Nicole, do you want to kick us off?
Tony Santiago.
Time safe with you guys, huh? Here we go again. Not to repeat anything I've said before, but I will pick up on what I left off with, which is that I sense this division that we're getting put into here between the residents, whether you're inside the gate, outside the gate, whatever the fraction could be. We've got to avoid this conflict of divisiveness that we can be dragged into. And I've said that to you before. I also said I would come back to you with some information. I promised you I would do that about what's going on inside the gate at Wild Dunes. And what we did immediately after that meeting was set up a petition. We reached out, identified the Wild Dunes members. These are owners in Wild Dunes. They're part of the Wild Dunes Community Association. And contrary to what the board indicated to you, there was what the feeling was there. We did a petition, and we have 721 signed petitions with addresses included. This was done in less than 6 days with no help from the board and no common communication platform, I might add. This took a lot of work and effort, and a lot of people spread the word for us. This was simply groundswell rooms. There was no political agenda. I want to also address with you that if you were thinking we weren't united, that should give you some evidence. This was 1/3, over 1/3 of the actual residents in less than 6 days, with nobody prepping them and no communication platform. So let's put that one behind us. We are all residents here wanting to stop development and to give us a chance to think this through. I put an article out, each one of you've gotten. I wrote it from a third-party perspective. It talks about healing. This island needs to heal. We need to figure out what we can handle here. Sewage, environmental issues, safety, road, all of that needs to be addressed. And we cannot leave a 50-year-old document guiding us that the standards raised on that allowed the Sweet Grass Inn to be built with no parking allocations. That was not anybody's fault here. That's the problem with that document. It's outdated. We need to get an updated document. These ordinances will do that. They are all important, but the number 5 ordinance is the critical one. That is the one that puts the cap down to where we are now. It does not stop the resort or any other developer from applying for a variance ordinance going forward. Once this is passed, they can make their case. And if this island can handle it, you will do the right thing and approve it. If it cannot, you also do the right thing and deny the permit. But you'll have a guiding document that is updated and ready for that, for you to achieve and use it with. So I please hope you will pass this through. Let the planning commission look at it on November 9th, and then let's get a second reading vote and pass all of these ordinances on that date. Thank you.
Randy Bell,
Thank you. This beats COVID Zoom calls. So I had the privilege of serving with 4 sitting members up here for a number of years. And, you know, when you look back, you think of the defining moments, the thing you did or didn't over that period of time. There aren't a lot of defining moments for the community. This is one of them. You know, I've been coming here for over 30 years. I haven't lived here that long, but the connector, the original Wild Dunes development, the hurricanes and all the issues. This is a defining moment. And one of the interesting things is 4 members sitting here will or will not choose to run again. Having gone through the marina referendum when I ran, that was a defining moment for this community as to what we do with that piece of property. This is another defining moment. I've had several people reach out to me, more than several, and comment at the last public hearing, that was the most unique meeting I've ever been to. I will tell you it was also the best. I've never seen a community this united on something. And if, for God's sake, if this message hasn't gotten through to this council, that this community does not want to be managed by zoning that occurred when I was in college, I'm now on Medicare for what that's worth, then I don't know how to deliver a stronger, broader message to a council to act on behalf of the residents. And thank you, and hopefully you'll move this forward.
Glenda Nemus,
Good evening. The people of IOP have spoken. Yes. The people of IOP have spoken. The petition of support for PRD changes for conservation is signed by hundreds. Please listen to all of the islanders from one end to the other. We want PRD conservation zoning. IOP citizens are proponents of destination stewardship. We believe our community knows best how to protect our fragile and unique barrier island life. We need to stop overdevelopment brought on by and supported by over-tourism, not degrade IOP communities' lifestyle, our environment, our safety, just because we abut a popular beach. Non-citizens want a piece of our community as well, to make money, to park for free, to enjoy the public beaches, to have a marina, to access the waterways, to use our recreation facilities, to provide all fire, police, and safety, to keep everything clean, to provide recreation, to party, and to have large gatherings. We already give to the public beachgoers and the overnight visitors plentifully from one end of the island to the other. We now have a proactive opportunity to use local stewardship to manage our future by not adding more people, traffic, waste, and stressing our water, drainage, and other systems and services. We need to have a quiet, clean, safe place to live. We need to protect our wildlife, waterways, our terrain, and our citizens. As the majority stakeholders in the future of the island, Isle of Palms, only we can make our future sustainable. Only we can maintain the livability, and only we can control from within what happens, not be controlled by developers whose motives are not the same, but are for monetary profits. The social and environmental responsibilities come from us. When I tell people I live here, they often respond, "You're living my dream." I'm not so sure they'll be saying that in the future if we don't think about sustainability now. Our future is not about placating developers, man-made golf courses and clubhouse improvements, more rental hotels and condos, but about the egret rookeries, the dolphins, the riding bikes, walking safely, getting medical care quickly, having a quiet to sleep at night. Remember, a good place to live is a good place to visit as well. Why would we want overdevelopment to take this from all of us, including those who visit here, just for the sake of the almighty dollar? We've already contributed enough money and services through stewardship to have the right to have a good community. Vote yes to the PRD zoning changes and be on the right side of destination stewardship. Let us be in charge of our future. Thank you very much.
Georgia Roan,
I'm Georgia Roan. I live at 904 Carolina Boulevard, and I've lived on the Isle of Palms for 30 years, and I have neighbors who've lived here longer than that. And I'm just one more voice in favor of the proposed zoning ordinances, which would preserve conservation and recreation space and restrict additional hotel and condo development in Wild Dunes. And my understanding is that it's very important for all 5 ordinances to be passed and approved by City Council for the plan to be successful. And the first ordinance would provide for a conservation recreation district, which would ensure preservation of natural resources and recreation centers, including golf and tennis. The second and third ordinances allow for rezoning of certain properties involved in the proposed region of Dart development. The fourth ordinance clarifies the language of the original zoning ordinance, which has just been referred to from 1975. And we definitely have every right and need to update that. The fifth ordinance limits the dwelling units to the current number rather than allowing 330 more dwelling units and 53 more hotel rooms in Wild Dunes. So I'm hoping that all 5 ordinances will pass. We weren't able to fight against some of the changes made by the Department of Transportation, but we can fight against this. And I don't know anyone here who feels that an outside developer should have rights which outweigh the wishes of the residents. And it seems that the voters are essentially unanimous in their opposition to this proposed development. And I'm asking City Council to move as quickly as possible. We don't feel we need another task force or more lawyers. We simply need to get these ordinances voted into law. And thank you for your service to our community and for listening to these opinions.
Tim Amity,
My name's Tim Amuti. I'm speaking on behalf of the Barrier Island Preservation Alliance. And I urge council and the mayor to vote yes on the 5 new ordinances set before you tonight. IOP is facing many challenges: parking, traffic, short-term rentals, infrastructure, and control over land use. Rewriting the old Wild Dunes PRD with the 5 new ordinances under consideration is a step in the right direction. This will help pace new development, requiring the Wild Dunes property owner to submit any development or rezoning plan to the city, allowing the city to analyze usage and impacts, cap the number of hotel rooms and vacation rentals at the current number, prohibit changes to the existing recreational properties and open spaces, and create recreational and conservation zones. The new ordinances check off a lot of boxes addressing growth, congestion, quality of life, and stress on the island's infrastructure. The residents you represent, the people that put you into office, have gone on record with 800 5 signatures to support the adoption of the ordinance under consideration tonight. 75% of those signatures are voters and represent 13% of the qualified voters on the island. Those signatures were gathered in 3 days. To sum up, pass all 5 of these ordinances to amend the outdated, obsolete Wild Dunes PRD, do it unanimously, quickly, and do not kick this down the road. You've been tasked with putting islanders first. Do not be intimidated, threat of lawsuits, or pressure from special interest groups. We, the undersigners of these petitions, members of this community, 805 people strong, have your back. Don't let us down. Mayor and council, you have the opportunity to create a meaningful and lasting template to be used for the benefit of the entire island. Please choose wisely. Thank you.
Dan Schlotchber,
I've lived on the island since 1996 as a homeowner, and I've witnessed a lot of changes throughout the community, including a lot of infrastructure issues that have occurred. I worry that by not changing the zoning, we're going to create a nightmare on the island. We've already got egress and ingress problems during the beach days. We've got problems with security and safety. Getting off the island is a nightmare for people if there's an emergency of any sort at all. And now we're looking at a situation where we could build hundreds of condos, and that doesn't mean 100 rooms, hundreds of condos, whether they're 1 room or 2 rooms or 3 rooms. There could be a proposal to build a hotel. There's the golf course property. It's endless how much construction we could have if we don't regulate it. So I stand here today asking you to support all of the motion that's before you and to vote for it and to vote for it quickly. I don't think the island can afford, and I don't think that our quality of life can afford not to do that. I want to thank you for the due diligence you've done. One thing that we know now is that you've hired counsel to make sure that you have the ability to pass the motion. You've hired counsel to make sure that you have that there is precedent for exactly what you're trying to do now. So you have the ability to do it. The question now is, will you do it, and can you do it quickly? I sat in the meeting a few weeks ago. Mr. Streetman commented on the marina and said, we waited too long. Had we done it earlier, we could have gotten a better deal. We didn't, and now we have to move forward with what we have in front of us. You have an ability now to do something quickly. Over the last several years, I've watched what's happened with tidal wave. I've watched what's happened with the marina, and everything gets dragged out, and it doesn't get any better. I would ask that you move quickly and efficiently, and that you pass this, and not next year, but you pass it this year and put it behind us. This is one of the few times in recent history that the entire island is together. I've spoken to people in Wild Dunes. I live in Wild Dunes. I've spoken to people outside of Wild Dunes, and I don't know anybody that doesn't support passing this. In fact, I would ask for a show of hands of everybody that supports passing this motion at this point. So there's been some rumor that I've heard about a silent majority that really doesn't support it. But from what I've seen, that doesn't exist. Not only is it not in this room, it's not in all the literature, it's not in all the signatures that have come forward and presented to all of you. People want it done. And I would ask you, if you have any personal feelings, personal agendas, to put them aside. You've all been elected to represent the members of this community. That's your job. And I would ask that you do represent them. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you move efficiently. I know there's something next week, but I don't know why we can't have this on the agenda for November and get it done. Thank you.
Elizabeth Campson,
Good evening. Since the introduction of the pending ordinances, a variety of opinions have been expressed. The overriding narrative from residents, expressed through emails, public comments, and participation in various petition efforts, is supportive and encouraging. These ordinances are clearly a galvanizing topic from a residential perspective, and the interest and engagement is unlike anything I've ever seen. Another narrative I've heard expressed is the idea that the introduction of these ordinances was made in haste, and that the ordinances themselves are based upon emotion and therefore not rationally supported. By extension, those that support them are emotional and are offering opinions not grounded in fact. Our comprehensive plan isn't emotional. Our land use map isn't emotional. Our code of ordinances isn't emotional. The pending ordinances aren't emotional and were introduced after multiple executive sessions where facts and positions were carefully scrutinized. This isn't a haphazard, crazed process. It is statutorily defined, and it hasn't been taken lightly. What these ordinances seek to accomplish is supported by the foundations of our comprehensive plan, land use map, existing ordinances, and strategic plan, are fact-based and are rational. We are commenting on them tonight because the city recognized zoning changes are necessary in order to protect recreational open space from development, and density limitations within the PDD are necessary in order to ensure there continues to be an appropriate ratio between developed areas and conserved areas in wild dunes. The changes that have occurred in our community since 1975 are plain to see, and the acknowledgement that our code should be updated to accommodate those changes isn't based upon conjecture. These actions are thoughtful and appropriate. As a result, I hope you hold second reading as quickly as possible in order to pass all 5 of the ordinances as written. Thank you.
Penny Portman,
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for the work that you do. And I know that among those of you, there are times when you agree and times when you disagree. But this is one time where the community agrees. We're all here for the same reason, and that is that we have a second reading and we pass the zoning ordinance changes as they've been proposed. 3 areas I'd just like to quickly highlight. I could do dozens. Sustainability. At this particular point, we have no plans to add more green space on our island. So why would we consider taking away some of the green space that we have? That would be one. Second would be infrastructure. I live on 39th and Cameron, and every time there's rain, any place between 36th and 40th, not only does the street flood, but the parking spaces flood, the sidewalks flood, and the beach accesses flood. I'm more worried about that in part because we have these wonderful snakes. We need to fix, I'll just take that little tiny one, the flooding of the streets and the surrounding areas. And then third, the residential life. I'm probably one of the most frustrated trying to get back on the island during the summer, anytime before 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm really reluctant to leave the island anytime after 5 o'clock in the afternoon for the same reason as everyone else seems to be. We have a lot of traffic. We have a lot of things that we still need to fix. I'm asking that you pass the zoning ordinances changes at our second reading and that we have that as fast as possible. Thank you.
Doug Truslow,
My name is Doug Truslow, and I'm here speaking in favor of the proposed ordinances. I know we saw a show of hands, but I'm not sure that demonstrated where the residents stand. If we could have the residents that are in favor of the proposed amendments, could you stand? Thank you. A hand raise. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I'm not counting the people who are on the back row where there's no, because we have an overflow. But are there any people, if you could step forward, if you are opposed to the ordinance? I think I respectfully suggest that that speaks volumes on where the citizens stand and who you are loyally obligated and willing to support. Again, my name is Doug Truslow. I'm speaking very much in favor of the proposed ordinances. First, some relevant history is important and to put in perspective. Crushing density issues were never on the radar screen in the 1970s when I got married here on the island. Tourism and day tripping wasn't a problem at all. We welcomed having people, but enough is enough. Moving forward in the 1970s and 80s, our firm was doing significant work in Wild Dunes. We had the benefit of working and communicating on a regular basis with all the developers, from the Finches, from Charles Fraser, respected Sea Pines, then called Beach and Racket Club, and on and on. We had some very good people we worked with. The PDR acronyms or PUDs were a new concept. There weren't any Airbnb concepts, no VBRs. No one envisioned the many challenges that we faced since 1975. That said, I can tell you without a doubt, having worked with respected developers, that not a single one of them ever envisioned a series of even more hotels and more condos and more people than our community could fairly accommodate. It was never on the radar screen. The intent and vision was to be compatible with our residential community. Facts, with a limitation that I've got about 3 minutes, and maybe you'll give me a few minutes more. I have 7 points or 6 points that I want to make. I can consolidate two. Number one, Wild Dunes consist of, I hope everybody knows, consist of less than approximately 2 square miles of habitable space, overridden by traffic constriction. We can't avoid it. We're an island constricted by geography. Wild Dunes density is now 10 times the national average. 10 times.
Mr. Truslow,
Yes.
I know you have 7 points, but we are allotting people 3 minutes.
All right. Well, if you'll accommodate me, I'll go past. If the council says they don't have time, thank you, sir. During the warm weather times, we have 54 times the national average, and it's projected if this more development goes through 75 times the national average. We can't handle it. We can't handle it. Consider consensus reports, consider the demographics, emergency healthcare needs. A debt of gratitude goes to Scott Pierce. I know we're not supposed to single people out, but for all the hard work he did gathering information for the public. Number three, consider Folly Beach has far less population density than Isle of Palms. Plus, they have in a legally successful manner, have limited further tourism density. Isle of Palms is 6 times more dense than Folly Beach. That's 6 times. Do we want 10? When's enough? Kiowa, Isle of Palms is 5.5 times more dense. Are they, Folly Beach and Sullivan's Island, that much smarter than us? And the list of comparison goes on and on. Finally, points 4 and 5 together with 6, we all respect property rights. We all respect them, but the holy grail is the health and safety and accommodation of our public and our rule of law. The claim that we need the developers' money to keep taxes down is a false narrative. It's a false narrative. I can explain it later to you, but we just don't have time today. That's a false narrative. To sum up, number 6, the most unwise move would be to try to negotiate from a position of weakness without easement on the front end will not work any more than it worked for Neville Chamberlain. I ask you to pass this ordinance. Only then, if you must, let the developer try to negotiate following the rule of law while considering the residents' best interest. Thank you.
Carly David.
My name is Carly David, and I have lived on the Isle of Palms with my husband for 35 years. And last week we were at in front of our son's house, which he also lives on the Isle of Palms on Waterway, and we watched a golf cart parade with he and his family. And Zach turned to me and looked and he said, "Mom, how lucky are we to be able to live on this island and to raise a family?" And I said, "You know, you're right." And at that point, I decided that this is probably the best time for me to come back and chat again with y'all. So I think that most of us agree. And what we need to do is sort of just look at it all from all sides. The density has changed here since 1975, and our ordinances, which are guardrails, they need to be changed as well. I was told that some of the council would rather negotiate with the developers, which is fine, but the developers without guardrails will probably say they will negotiate if they can add another hotel and if they can add a condo and if they can add whatever else they need to add, whatever their business plan calls for. Many don't realize that the company holds more than 80% of Wild Dunes Resorts, has only been here for a couple of years. And what does that tell us? It tells us that they don't get it. They don't have a vested interest in our island, but how could they? The main owner has given up his American citizenship and now works out of another country and lives in another country. And his business plan is public knowledge. That is, he wants to build and build as much as possible wherever. Remember, the goal of a developer is to make money. It's naive of us to think that the developers are going to do something just because they say they will. They need guardrails. Just look at the overdevelopment everywhere. As you've already heard, the guardrails remind us that we could fall off of a cliff if we aren't careful. I realize that progress affects us all and negotiation is definitely necessary, and I'm all for that. But we have to use common sense and we must negotiate from a place of strength rather than a place of weakness. We have been reactive so many times over the last few years, and you all know what a mess that has caused because we're always in the catch-up mode. We hear time and time again that there are very few spots in the nation that are like the Isle of Palms, and now it's time for us to think of its future and our future. I voted for every one of you. I respect you all so much, and the enormous time and effort that you all put here, I think we all are very appreciative.
Ms. David, could you please wrap up your comment?
I will.
Thank you.
And the council, you are the voice of we the people. And those 5 ordinances are our guardrails that will put us on a forward path to protect this beautiful spot environmentally and to preserve what we all love about it. Thank you.
Jeff Simon.
It's good to see everybody again, and thank you. I just want to set a little scene for you. The PRD was written in 1975. In 1975, we trailered horses down to the end of Palm Boulevard, where there was a large asphalt circle, and we could ride the horses out on the deserted beach. We used to climb 50-foot dunes where you could see both the sunrise or the sunset from the top. If you close your eyes, you could imagine the Queen Anne's Revenge coming across the bar into Dewey's Inlet. The PRD was written in a time when Isle of Palms looked more like 1775 than the current day. And unfortunately, and I have been on past councils, it has never been revisited. That was a mistake that's owned by probably 50 or 60 elected officials. It's unreasonable to think that a document written in that period of time would be relevant and sensible in this period of time. In 1975, Mount Pleasant had a population of 6,000. There are now 6,000 hotel rooms in Mount Pleasant. Difference, big difference. The PRD is a working document. It didn't come down from Mount Sinai. It was written by people and it was meant to be a guidepost. It should have been revisited, and you're about to revisit it, which is legal and appropriate. And I would remind you that when you revisit it, the point in revisiting it is to help ensure the residential quality of this island. I was here when it was written. I was a young man, I'm unmarried, kind of having a good time at what used to be Malibu East at that point. And I didn't know what it meant. I really didn't pay any attention. And when I did get on council, Wild Dunes was kind of calm and just sort of moving along. It's not that circumstance now. And each of you, when you ran, promised that you would guard us and help us keep the quality that everybody who has already spoken has spoken about. So you have a legal obligation to look at it now. You have the legal wherewithal to make these necessary changes, and you're fully aware that we're living in a different time than when this document was written.